So hey guys, welcome back to Into the Studio Season 2, and also recording this on the first day of Pride Month, which is
Happy
very
Pride.
fitting. So we have a really fun episode lined up for you guys. My name is Matt,
And I am Orion.
and yeah, we're here to talk to you about gay stuff. So yeah, today's episode we're talking about Steven Universe, and if you're a part of the Steven Universe fandom or know anything about Steven Universe, it's like it's one of the LGBT latched on shows, you know. There is a good amount of like positive representation. Like we got non-binary characters, we got like
There's a lot of lesbians.
yeah, space lesbians.
Yeah. So
I had to like go back into my high school mindset. I was like, Steven Universe. Well, I mean,
I
like,
rewatched it. It's okay.
I watched Steven Universe feature like fairly recently because that's when it came out, and then the movie and all that. But yeah. So
Let's get into it. So everybody knows Garnet. If you don't, Garnet is a fusion of two different gems.
Sapphire and Ruby.
Thank you. Two lesbians becoming one lesbian, essentially.
I wouldn't call it that, but yes,
It counts. It counts. Throughout the story, we kind of meet them. They were one of the first fusions, and there was like a manhunt for them, essentially.
well, okay. Fusion is very taboo. In
clarify that
the Steven Universe world, or was, and when Sapphire and Ruby first fused, it was seen as like basically like an abomination and very bad. But they loved each other and like cared about each other like very, very, very much. So they were like, no, like I want to keep staying fused. Like this is who we are. And then, you know, Garnet has that banger of Stronger Than You.
Absolutely. There's also one of the other main characters, Pearl and Rose. We meet Rose only through flashbacks if you're unfamiliar with the series, but Pearl and Rose had a thing going on. Like,
I do like Pearl's character development because it's very much like in the beginning, like pining, toxic, like codependent, whatever, and then she just evolves into being herself. And independent and just kind of like, yeah, no, fuck Rose Quartz, fuck Pink Diamond, because as we find out, Pink Diamond is the worst gem ever. Like, fuck Pink Diamond.
yeah.
Wait, are we allowed to curse?
Yeah, we can say fuck.
Okay, fuck Pink Diamond.
I wouldn't get too vulgar, but we are allowed to cuss.
And then they like, there's also the controversial, Lapis Lazuli and Jasper thing going on where is it Malachite?
Malachite's the one with the triangle nose, right?
I can't remember,
I don't
but
know.
Lapis and Jasper fuse. Well, Lapis fuses with Jasper to keep her like at the bottom of the ocean. And there's so much trauma touched upon, like, that Lapis visibly goes through, and it's controversial because like it shows like a really, really toxic dynamic, but also I think that's just something that needs to be talked about in general, is like very codependent toxic relationships.
And that definitely shows back up when Lapis and Peridot have like a cottagecore lesbian thing going on. Like they live on like a barn, they fill it with stuff, they like have like a farm and all that stuff. And it comes to the point where Peridot wants to stay on Earth while a bunch of stuff is happening. There's a possibility of another war, like Gem Earth War. Lapis essentially gathers the entire barn that they live in and shoots himself off into space completely just because Peridot and because Peridot didn't want to go. Like Peridot took some of their stuff and like stayed out.
There's a whole thing that went on with that.
Oh my god.
But I feel like Steven Universe has a lot of dynamics that start off bad, but then are learned to like, communicate your feelings, and like, especially with things like gems where they don't follow like human societal rules. And I'd argue that Peridot is pretty autistically coded.
Yeah. Our non-binary lesbian icon. And autistic representation.
Yes. And so there's a lot of discussion to be had. There's also, since going back to fusion and how it's taboo, it's especially taboo with the character Stevani, which
I have a lot to say about Stevani.
Yeah, they are a great character. They're one of my favorite characters in the entire series. So since fusion is already taboo, Steven ends up fusing with Connie,
who is not a gem or part gem, by the way. I think this is the first fusion where people are like, oh, Steven's capable of fusion as a half gem, which is
but people are like, oh my god, you're fusing with a human? That's like unheard of and all that. And they fused into Stevani, which is canonically a non-binary character.
Intersex non-binary character.
Yeah, intersex non-binary.
But the way Rebecca, the creator of the show or whatever, the way that they spoke about Stevani was as the way to tell the story between Steven and Connie's relationship and like all the firsts that they're going through. I don't feel like she needed to. I think Rebecca uses she, they.
As far as I know, no. I think Rebecca Sugar uses she, her pronouns.
Okay, she, her.
But definitely not a woman. Just
non-binaries.
Yeah.
But she's using an intersex character or their intersexness as a plot point, like as a tool to describe the relationship, instead of just letting there be an intersex character and then letting Steven and Connie work it out, not as a fusion or as a fusion that's not intersex. That's like my only quarrel, I guess.
Yeah, that's something that I saw early on in the intersex community online, where they're tired of being othered instead of just like assimilating into society, like just being. Because again, like Stevani is seen as some sort of like not like basically like a taboo creation in the universe, and it's like it takes a while for them to get used to it. And I feel like that is not how intersex should be talked about. But also, like it makes sense in the universe if you're following the plot point of fusion, but it does not make the intersex community happy. That's from what I've seen.
Yeah, it's one of those things where when it comes to talking about non-binariness and non-binary identities, when it comes to people who aren't familiar with that, a lot of people will say there's literally like a non-binary sex category, and it's being intersex, and it's again using intersex as a tool to describe something else and to explain something else, rather than letting just intersex be intersex, which is I think what a lot of issue people had in the community, the intersex community.
There is a redemption, well, not of intersex, but at least non-binary, where oh my god, what's her name? Sadie's partner, after Lars gets sent off into space. Spoiler warning, but it's been out long enough. It's been out long enough. But like after Lars gets sent out into space or whatever, Sadie gets a partner who uses they them pronouns, and it's just talked about as if like, oh yeah, this is my partner. They're great. Like there's no like big like, this is my non-binary partner. Like
the thing is, aside from that character, I don't think there are any other besides Stevani, the fusion, and Sadie's partner being non-binary.
Yeah, no, that's overall, like the only. It's the crumbs of representation, which is why Steven Universe is not the great place if you're looking for queer rep.
Yeah, that being said,
the foundations, I guess I would say
they're there. But that being said, a lot of people in the trans masculine community, use Lars, who's the dude who gets rocketed into space. He's a whole part of his identity from his parents and stuff like that. And a lot of transmasculine people pinned him as transmasculine. It was like, that's my experience. Lars is transgender. There has been
he's
been weird about his body when Steven accidentally like became him or whatever that weird episode was.
Yeah, there's a lot of like hinting that he could possibly be trans, but it was never confirmed. So a lot of headcanons are like Lars is trans masses, especially because Lars is not
he's not
his legal name, basically.
Yeah. I think also just in general, one of my main like quarrels with like queer representation in media anywhere, it's just they don't like to say gay or trans. They don't like to say it. Like you have a whole race of like sexless, femme presenting aliens who are gems, and none of them are gonna have to talk about, are you guys lesbians or like what? Like that's a normal conversation that would come up. Like, and it's a fantasy thing.
I'm sure we'll talk about this show this season, but just to hint at it, the Loud House has like a lot of good LGBT representation that just exists in the world, as it does on planet Earth. And I feel like the shows need to be more like that, where it's just like, oh yeah, here's my two dads, they're gay. There we go. Like,
and not have it be like, oh my god, he has two dads or something like that, right? Like, it's just like,
I feel like
his dads.
I feel like everything just needs to Sesame Street it, because it's just like they take the issue and they normalize it first, and then they'll teach kids how to deal with bigotry, and like anything that might come across from that. And I feel like that's how things just need to be, is like you show them this and you're like, yeah, this is a part of life. And then unfortunately some people will do this, so here's how to deal with it.
It's like really great to see all this like gay representation on screen, but the lack of trans representation is what is like, I guess, really it's staying silent, especially with the state of the world right now, filming this the first day of Pride Month. No one's thinking about trans people anymore. There's going to be a bunch of cishet gays out here busting their asses at Pride, and trans people are going to be left in the dust. I hope that's not the case, but it's likely going to be the case.
I'm going to be so loud this Pride Month. It's going to be very exhausting, but oh my God. I feel like, there's like, I can't think of a show off the top of my head that has like a
trans man or a trans woman character, like.
Well, I can think. I don't know. I have to do more research because, like, I haven't watched this show that I'm thinking of fully. I won't say it in case there's false information.
I'm just saying we can't think of any off the top of our head within our like collection of media that we have. And that's a problem. So
I can think of anime.
Anime has us. Yeah.
I can think of really good trans men rep for anime, but I can't think of like Western cartoons, which is ironic because Japan is not the best when it comes to LGBT stuff.
Surprise! Someone snuck it in.
I mean, that's a whole separate conversation.
But
I do. Well, this doesn't really have anything to do with queerness in general, but I really appreciate how Steven Universe feature touches upon trauma, because like a lot of things that I see is like main characters just go through like traumatic things and be like, oh, it's nothing.
I think is it the second series that comes from this where he's like at the doctor.
Steven Universe feature.
I don't know what they're called. He's like at the doctor. He's like, I'm turning pink, and she's like, you need therapy.
It touches on PTSD. It like straight up like your body is reacting to small things as if you are in survival mode. Like it straight up touches on PTSD, how to deal with that, like somewhat. I mean, like TV shows aren't therapy, but like and I really appreciate that because I never see any protagonists deal with like PTSD.
I think they handle this in a very good way as well, because like it's the physical, like visible, him turning like bright fucking pink to like signal
bright pink,
signal like the fact that he's like physically responding to something.
It was essentially just like he was having like a buildup of stress and like other things going on, and it just kind of exploded.
Changing shape, changing color, like doing all this weird stuff. And like the doctor's like, Steven, you've been through a lot. And he's like, no, I have to stay strong. And I'm like, Steven, take the advice of your doctor, okay? On other notes, away from trauma, away from PTSD, I want to talk about fluorite. This is a fusion of a lot of gems. And if we can take Garnet as a relationship between two gems, a relationship between how many, I want to say 16 or like 32 gems in the fusion of fluorite. I can't do numbers, so I'll flash on screen what actual like fusion number they have. But like,
yeah, I'm trying to remember.
Polyamory. We find, I should also mention, this is also the time where Stephen brings Lars back to life, and fluorite is with those
is
fusion
this with
gems
the
or like off-color gems?
The disabled gems?
It's the off-color ones. That's what they're called. Like the one with that split in half and like the.
So yeah, the disabled gems.
Ooh, yeah, actually.
That's also the thing, is like the disabled community is kind of split on, that I partook in this conversation with, is like there's representation of like gems that are not what your typical able-bodied gem would be. It's just very.
I should mention, as someone who has like a physical disability.
Oh yeah, we're both disabled.
Yeah, thanks rheumatoid. But like, I didn't, until you said it, pick up that those were disabled characters. That could just be me, but like I didn't.
How not?
I don't know. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention. But they were presented in a way. It's like,
to be fair, you haven't watched the series through. I'm calling you out right now. You haven't watched it all the way through.
Leave me alone. I just think that they were presented in a way that wasn't. They were presented in a way that was like, oh, we're off colors. We're being hunted because we're like fucking incorrect or something like that, right? They're
How
going
do you not
to
get disabled from that allegory?
I can get a lot of things from that, but I'm not thinking about disability.
Anyway, all I can think about is like disabled and like ableism, because they're hunting them because
they're off colors, right?
How are you not getting this allegory?
Leave me alone.
Anyway, continue.
I don't know what I was saying. I think, but back to fluorite, I don't often see polyamory presented in media. Maybe it's just the media that I'm watching, but like, especially in children's media, we don't really see a lot of like healthy, multi-dimensional relationships that are like non-monogamous.
Yeah, usually non-monogamy is taken as a joke in media.
Yeah.
Especially if like it's seen as like usually it's like a cis-het male with like two girlfriends, and it's like,
which, by the way,
womanizer.
is fetishization and lesbophobic. Not always, but if your man says he would be okay with you being with another woman but not another man, that's lesbophobia, and you should run away.
And, yes, absolutely. But like, I feel like the only positive polyamory rep that I see is like in short indie films that purposefully seek out to make
short films about polyamory. Like, but to see it just not in a show about polyamory, like in like an average like setting. I don't know what that was.
Yes,
it's very good.
Going back to Steven Universe, we want to talk about a great pansexual icon.
Oh yes.
Do you want to speak?
This is back to Stevani. Stevani, I don't know what Stevani's sexuality is. They're presented as more feminine, but I don't know. Like, they're perceived as more feminine, I assume, by the people around them.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I wouldn't be able to infer what sexuality they've been assigned, right? But do you guys know Kiki Pizza? Do you know Kiki Pizza?
Yes.
Okay, great. Great. Kiki Pizza, pansexual icon, dating anyone under the sun. But I don't have this in my notes. Is Kiki Pizza only pansexual because they asked out a non-binary or an intersex person? Or are they pansexual because
they're pansexual?
I know, but I'm worried about the fact
I'm finishing your sentence.
Yeah, I'm worried about the fact that they could have chosen the non-binary intersex character as like the other gender to conclude like all genders. That's what that
was my first reaction. Is that like I wasn't sure if they were just making the character pansexual to ask out Stevani.
Instead of like Stevani is bi, Stevani likes boys and girls, like or like whatever.
Non-binary doesn't have a gender. It's it doesn't have a like look. Is what I meant to say. and it
It's
could be like
also-
any gender presentation anywhere. So like, for example, if someone is like a lesbian could ask out like a non-binary person, you know, because his lesbian is
Yeah.
non-men loving non-men. So like I'm just concerned that the pansexuality is only because of non-binariness.
And it would be biphobia that stems from, just to clarify, because bi and pan are interchangeable for a lot of people. They mean essentially the same thing to a lot of people, and a lot of people will use them interchangeably.
Yeah.
Pansexual has a bad rep because bisexuality is only men and women and only includes men and women, does not include non-binary, intersex, or trans people, which is why pansexual is also seen as transphobic, because it's like, you're not pansexual just because you are attracted to a trans person. That's one of the few questions people will ask. Is like, oh, you're a trans man. Does that mean I'm pansexual? No. If you like men, that means you're gay. If you're a man,
I was gonna say like a cis
or a straight femme.
Trans man.
You guys know what I mean. You guys know
Oh my god. Anyway, yeah, just there's a lot going on.
There's a lot happening. The good thing is, though, we have these labels, but you're only getting them after you're doing your little searches. I still have quarrels with not directly saying gay, trans, bi, pan, anything.
Yeah, I would like to see more non-binary rep in general that are just existing. And I mean, we're getting that. There's a lot of new series coming out with like non-binary lead characters and stuff. There's still like, you know, white, skinny non-binary people, which that's a whole separate issue. But like, we're getting there. I just wish it was faster.
I think this frustrates me most is because oftentimes, like, the don't say gay bills is more of just like out of sight, out of mind, and it kind of puts in like the opt-in, opt-out. You can choose to see queer or you can choose to not see queer, which is just like a tactic to keep like homophobic and transphobic viewers, so they don't have to directly interact with queerness, because queerness is not being stated out loud. And like, we have moments in Steven Universe where it's like, oh, why are these two gems dancing with each other romantically? But again,
yeah, it's
that episode was banned, by the way. Like, it was not shown in some parts. If where Pearl and Rose were like romantically dancing with each other.
Well, there's a lot of media that are banned across different countries that are like very, very much like LGBT phobic. Yeah, Steven Universe, I feel like, is the stepping stone that we all needed for like, it kind of opened the door just to more queer media. And of course, Rebecca Sugar being queer herself.
I didn't even think about that.
Still controversial.
I think the way it was portrayed is by, is Rebecca a lesbian?
No.
She wrote a show with a bunch of lesbians and isn't a lesbian. So
Well, hold on. I don't actually know her sexuality. But like,
I'm going to assume that because it's a show with a bunch of queer women in it, is because it was made by a queer woman.
I think, one, she's not a woman. But
Well,
two,
woman, like non-binary, you know what I mean?
no.
I know what I mean. I'll clarify what I mean. Queer woman being Rebecca Sugar still uses she, her, and still identifies as femme, and still I think uses woman, but it's non-binary woman.
Well,
to
no.
clarify.
I'm pretty sure she stated that she doesn't use woman as a term for
then-
herself. But either way,
has a bad
Rebecca Sugar, stepping stone of like Steven Universe, opening the doors for like a lot more queer media. Because Rebecca Sugar has stated before that like she purposely made Steven a white or like a like light-skinned, pale like character, main character, boy character, because Cartoon Network probably wouldn't let them run as long as they did if the character was like, let's say, like a black girl main character.
They have a habit of canceling shows like that, so I understand that.
Yeah, I mean, like Disney with canceling the Owl House. I mean, we'll also talk about that, but
Yeah, Owl House is in the lineup. I think I have one more thing. The one thing I want to like mention is like a lot of stories are written to be gay and to not be queer. I think Steven Universe is very queer but still centered to a gay audience almost. Do you know what I mean?
Elaborate.
It's not intersectional.
Yeah, no, definitely
Like
not.
it's like the baseline, oh, gay people, and it's like
I feel like
queer
this feels kind of weird to say because it wasn't really that long ago, but for the time that it started airing, especially during that like 2012 to like 2016 Tumblr era, I feel like it was pretty okay for its time. Definitely not the best. It definitely could have been better. But it did help a lot of queer people come to and feel safe in their identities, which is good. And then now we have like, you know, a lot more queer media, thankfully. Like there's so much that I can watch with queer media that I'm just like, as a child would have loved. And now it's accessible to a lot of children. Like the Umbrella Academy. Like I'm so excited for the next season.
Yes.
Yeah. That's all I got.
We'll talk about it in the next episode, more about transgender representation in media. And this time we're going to get away a little bit from the animated perspective, and we're going to take a look at my own personal project and what I'm doing to make the queer representation good. So
yeah, tune in to the next episode. As always, you can find us at @into_the_studio on Instagram. And is it just @into the studio on Twitter?
I'm checking right now.
Oh.
Yeah, just Into the Studio on Twitter as well.
Yeah, just @into the studio on Twitter. And yeah, our lovely podcast, wherever you're listening to this to. Have a great rest of your day, night, morning, whatever.
All right, bye.
Bye.